welcome back to another RedRose Angling episode. It's been a long time coming, this one, but we're finally back in France after all the restrictions with COVID. You've probably seen on one of my other videos on the channel, I've been to France fishing public lakes once before. I had a great time, so I've been dying to get back, and unfortunately for the last 2 or 3 years, because of the COVID restrictions, we've not been able to make it happen. But this time I've come back with my friend Matt, who you'll have seen on some of my other videos, and I thought I'd just bring you up to date with what's happened so far. So it's quite an early start from Lancashire. We had the long drive down to Dover and we got the ferry across to Calais. We arrived at our first venue mid-afternoon, and we had a good look around. It's quite a big venue, this one, and straight away we managed to bump into a really helpful English angler, Graham. So Graham, if you're watching this, you're a legend, mate, thank you. And Graham gave us some really good information. Information from Graham was that there's a lot of fish out in the middle of the lake at distances that you can't reach. You're not allowed to use boats on this lake. It's casting from the bank, so they were way out of range. And yeah, it was getting on. It was late night. We had to nip to the supermarket, and by the time we got into the swims it was dark, so we were setting up in the dark. And I just chucked out a couple of rods, 2 rods, both fishing on 24mm manila bottom baits with a little plastic maize topper. I chucked them out as far as I can, and I put a couple of kilos over them rods with the throwing stick. Just before first light, I was awoken by a savage take, which was great. First night, got one on the board for us, got us up and running, and I will show you the footage of that fish now. Good morning. It's just about to come light. And I've not long since caught my first fish of the trip. Don't know how big it is, but I would estimate it's possibly an upper 20, maybe scrape a 30. So I'm going to sit up now, look for any shows, and then reassess what I'm going to be doing. But that is a good start to the trip. There we go. That's the first fish of the trip. Broke the deadlock. That one's 27 pounds. 4 ounces, very lightly scaled mirror. Don't really think it knew it was hooked. Swam back towards me. It's the first one on the sticky baits manila. I'll quickly show you the other side as well. There we go, that's the other side. Gets us underway for the trip. We'll slip this one back. We've got a few nights ahead of us. We're going to give it another 24 hours minimum here, and then reassess. And if we need to move to another place, another lake, then we can move on. There we go. Thank you, my love. So being up early and having a look out on the water, we have seen more fish showing. So we've decided, we've got quite a few lakes that we've researched this time. So we've decided for now, just based on the fish that we've seen showing, they're not too far away from where we are. We're going to give it another night tonight. We both only set 2 rods each up last night. We were absolutely shattered, needed to get some sleep. So I'm upping it today, going to put 3 rods back out. I have brought a 4th, but I don't think I'm going to bother with it, to be honest. Hopefully set the traps tonight and we might be rewarded with another fish. Second cappuccino of the morning for me. Just get me woken up. So this is where we've ended up. We're on the north bank of the lake, and all the fish that we've seen showing been right out in the middle of the pond, probably 200 to 300 metres away, way beyond my casting capabilities. when you're using a large bait as well that has got no aerodynamic capabilities, you know, the bait's nearly as big as the bloody lead. It doesn't make things easy. I guesstimate that I was fishing at around 100 yards last night, and I was pretty accurate with the baiting. The fish that I caught was actually passing bait into the sling, so definitely was bait all around the rigs. There we have Matt just getting his last rod out for the night. What both chose to do for tonight is to fish 2 rods tight on one area as far as we can get, really comfortably, and then bait around them. And we've both chucked 1 rod out short, so Matt's right hand rod has gone short, my left hand rod has gone short down to the left, so got a nice wind trickling in here tonight, which we didn't have yesterday, so hopefully that might bring some fish along with it. Matt's got a couple of kilos of boilies, which he's going to now put out with a throwing stick. Just spreading a couple of kilos now over them 2 rods. And get settled in for the night. Right, update time, and we've not had another bleep again last night. It's a good water, there's lots of fish in it, but I think Matt nailed it with what he said earlier, and that is that probably wouldn't come back on here unless you had a bait boat, because otherwise you're pitting in the wind. I mean, even if you can chuck 120, 140 and bait at that range, you're still probably 80 yards short. You probably want to be 250 yards out. That's where everything seems to be ending up every morning. The English lad Graham, he had a run yesterday morning at 10 o'clock. He was fishing at 25 wraps, and he had a run on a white pop-up at 10 o'clock and lost it, so we'll stick it out till 10 o'clock. Quite hard to get the perspective of it on the camera, but a lot of the fish that we're seeing sort of past where that bird is now that's moving, where that bird is that's moving across the screen, sort of in the second ripple, which looks like it's the other side of the pond, but it's about halfway, it's right in the middle. A couple of Dutch lads got here last night, they've gone down the other end. I've not heard them have anything, and there's been a French guy fishing to our left who I've not seen have anything. With that in mind, I think we need to get on our toes and try and find some fish elsewhere. The sun's just coming over the top of the trees now. Spoke to quite a lot of local people, and we've not had anybody who's been rude or dismissive of us being English. Everyone's been really helpful, happy to type into Google Translate and give us bits of information, which is really good to see. We've had one chap who fishes it regularly, trying to give us bits of information. The information is that it's not particularly an easy lake, even though there is, there's a fair few fish in here. We've seen quite a lot of fish, but the average depth is probably over 20 foot, so they could be sat at any sort of depth, and they sit out right in the middle of that bowl where they're uncatchable for most of the time, unless you've got a bait boat. But I think if I came back here again, I'd take on some of their advice, which is to use small hook baits and small bits of food. There's absolutely no issues with crays or nuisance fish. Every hook bait we put out is coming in perfect, so I'll probably take that on board. I would use smaller baits,
maybe bring a lot more particle, but I wouldn't even contemplate coming here unless I had a bait boat or brought a bait boat with me, which I do not like fishing with. I don't want to catch my fish using a remote control boat. For me, it's not fishing. It takes the skill out of casting. Going out yourself in a boat, you know, you're finding a spot, you're putting the rig in yourself, you're baiting it yourself. Feels a bit different, but I think if I was to come here again, I would have to swallow my pride and bring a bait boat, because there's no other way really.
Right guys, bonjour, good morning. Nothing happened last night, so we're going to be looking to move now and check out one of the other lakes that we have done some research on. I think this particular water, all the fish are just so far out of range. We're talking 250 metres out into the pond, and they're just sort of sat in the middle bowl. And yeah, they're not moving, they're not coming in, so there's no boats allowed on here. You can't reach where they are. We could easily sit here for a week over a bed of bait at 100, 120 yards and probably lose a week trying to do that. So we're going to get on our toes, be proactive and see if we can find some fish elsewhere. So we're just in the process of wrapping the gear up now, and then we'll be on the road and trying to find a few fish somewhere else.
This is pond number 2. You can park the car right round there, so we're just having a little walk. Seriously urban bank stuff. So it says from this outflow there's no fishing allowed within 100 metres. There's some French wanker there fishing right in the fucking out of bounds. 3 rods, 3 carp rods out and a fucking low rod. Chancer. It's not going to rain, you'll probably have to be under the stars this eve, or we're just talking about maybe chucking rods out for the day for a few hours and seeing if we get a run, or if anything happens, and if not, just chuck the rods back in the van and go to the next place, which is about, how far was it away? An hour? An hour to the next place. So quick update, I stand to be corrected, there's actually 3 French anglers, because there's 2 on this side fishing in the no fishing zone, fucking pulling strokes. 2 of them are just lure fishing, they've just got like 1 rod and a backpack, which I'm assuming that's their white van. The other one's, who's carp fishing, he's brought all of his stuff on a moped with a trailer. It's not the best looking of places, very industrial, it's like fishing on Cav Dock. And I mean on this side, how the hell can you fish here? But over there, there's like, it's a lot closer to the wall. So it might be a case of, our van's over there, so it might just be a case of getting a couple of rods out and having a few hours to see what happens, see if we get a run or anything. But it's nice and quiet. Right, so we've just been to check out the second water on the list. It's not inspired any confidence whatsoever. It was very industrial, not very nice to look at, and while we were there they opened a sluice gate. Half a forest came through with it. There was a no fishing zone that was restricted. You weren't allowed to fish within 100 metres of the sluice gate. There was 3 French anglers all set up fishing in the no fishing zone. It's not inspired us. We're going to move on to try the next water, which is about an hour and 15 minutes from here. So we'll give you an update when we get there. Okay, we're now at our 3rd lake of the day today. We did stop off at another place on the way here and it looked absolutely dreadful. I have taken some footage of the other lake that we came past today. I'll try to put the footage into this video, but basically there was 2 big gates that they kept opening, which I think was letting water in from the river to fill it up, and it was just bringing through loads of rubbish with it, stirring all the bottom up. The place looked a little bit sorry for itself. We didn't see any signs of fish, we just weren't feeling it, so we moved on. We've come to this lake, which is much nicer. It's right in the middle of sort of a forest. It's a very strange shaped lake. There's loads of little dot islands and separate arms, big channels in between the islands and stuff as well.
And yeah, we had a good walk around. We got probably 2/3 of the way around the lake, and then we found quite a lot of fish that was stacked up in a couple of these long, narrow arms. The lake is really, really shallow. Doesn't look any deeper than 3 or 4 foot, and the water level is really down, I think, from what it normally is. It looks like it's usually 2 to 3 foot higher than this. It's quite weedy, the bottom's really choddy, really sludgy, but we have been seeing quite a lot of fish cruising around, and a couple of them look like real nice ones. So the vague plan on here is to set up camp somewhere, maybe just further around the corner into one of the swims that commands a lot of water, and we'll probably just do the nights in there. Then through the daytime, when the sun gets up, I think the fish are going to end up keep stacking down into these little shallow arms, and that's where they can get all the sun. So we're probably going to be, through the daytime, moving about, stalking, seeing if we can trip one of these fish up. I've actually come very close today to catching fish.
This is about to get very interesting. That's the big one, and my rig is there, hoping that it turns and drops down. That's a very big fish, that. Come on, turn left. He is doing. Come on, it's coming right over the top of it now. It's right over the top of the bait. Come on, drop down. Drop down. Let's have a look at it though. That's a ridiculously large fish that doesn't do it justice on here.
There's been a few of them coming over my rigs. I think we just got here and we got set up and got on the fish. If we'd have been here 2 hours earlier, I think we'd have both had one. Matt's gone further around the corner and he's trying to stalk one round there. But when the sun was really high in the sky and it was the hottest part of the day, the fish weren't just swimming over the spots, they were going nose down, tailing up, and they were kicking up massive plumes of silt where they were rooting round on the bottom. So I think if we could have been in position 2 or 3 hours earlier, I think we'd have definitely caught one today. But it's given us a plan for tomorrow, but we're now getting on a bit. It's sort of coming up to 6 o'clock. It's actually going to be 2 degrees tonight, which is going to be the coldest night of the trip, and then the temperatures pick up a little bit. So big fluctuations. It's probably been 20 degrees in the daytime today. So these little shallow bodies of water I don't think are going to hold any fish at night time. The whole lake's shallow, so I think they'll just switch off altogether when it goes cold tonight, but I think when the sun comes back up we'll have a chance of stalking one from one of these arms. I'm going to give it another 30 minutes and then I'm going to have to get moving, otherwise we're going to be racing against the light. So I'll keep you updated. I'll just quickly show you. So I had a couple of rods stalking down here, really close in, and the fish have just been ghosting past me. But not actually dropping down on the rig. But I think they'll be back here tomorrow, especially when that sun gets up, and this area is so shallow that it's probably the fastest part of the lake to warm up, and that's where they'll be.
Very shallow lake. We were up down on a certain arm earlier before, so loads of fish, but it's about 2 foot deep at most. We've come into a more open area for the evening and just throwing them out really. A guy further down had one earlier on a pink bait, so I want the local knowledge of a pink bait in a solid bag. It's produced my first ever French carp. After waiting 4 days for this, I am more than over the moon. typical pale French leather. Got a few nice little scales on the wrist of the tail there. I'll try and get them up for you. There we go.
Just a minute. Drop it a tiny bit. Yeah, sweet. 26.5 pound. Like you say, there's hardly any scales, is there?
No, just a few on the wrist.
I think we'll have a look at the other side and then we can do some pictures. It's cold in it, the fish, you said?
Yeah. Well, it will be though, won't it? When it's only that shallow. And it's supposed to go down to about 3 degrees tonight, isn't it?
I think it said 2 degrees on the weather app.
You can definitely feel that in the fish already. Have a look at this side again. Very sparsely scaled. A few along the top of, along the dorsal fin there.
Yeah, mega. Yeah, chunky as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Nice and fat. Hopefully there's some bigger brothers and sisters in here. Right, I'll get you some stills, mate.
Right, so it appears that the change of lake has paid off. 2 fish in quick succession now. 1 for Matt, 1 for me. This one the biggest of the trip so far, again coming to a solid bag. And this one was £32.4. So this one came fished on a solid bag, thrown out into an area where we'd seen showing fish and really small hook bait. And yeah, this one, biggest one on the trip, first 30. There's plenty more fish showing behind us, so I want to quickly show you the other side and get these rods back out because we could end up catching a couple more if we get lucky here. Show you the other side. There we go. That's the other side. Big, dumpy, French piggy pig. Very sparsely scaled, similar to Matt's fish. That was a fish behind us showing again, so I'm going to get some water on this one, get some stills done, and then we need to get the rods back out. Right, we've seen loads of fish. It's ridiculously shallow. It's probably 2 or 3 foot deep everywhere. Right down in the end of the arm, there's loads of fish just sat in and about the weed beds, but they're not sat still, they're moving about, they're tailing up. When they tip up, the tails are out of the water, so they're feeding. They're coming in so close to the bank as well, it's unbelievable. They're like a rod length out, some of them. I've seen one fish that was bigger than all the others. It's hard to say how big they are in the water, but it was bigger than everything else. It was longer, and it had a really big shoulder. So we've definitely seen more to go off here. And there's nobody fishing. There's 2 French anglers on, they're both packing up. They're right round the other side. We got probably 2/3 of the way around the lake, didn't see any fish at all. And then all down here, there's another, I don't know if you can see it, but there's actually another fish out there. You'll never see it on this. But I mean, you can see how far down it is. It usually comes up to here, so it's probably a couple of foot down. He's quite weedy as well, so it'll have to be like solid bags or wade out to a little hole and just lower a rig in and put a handful over it. You wouldn't want to put loads of bait in because it's too shallow and there's millions of birds. But I've managed to get 2 solid bags out, and look, you can see, if you can see that one there, just in that light. But there's still fish in the area. I've not scared them off, so I don't even dare risk getting a 3rd rod out now because I've created a bit of disturbance doing them too. You can just see it there on the edge of that shadow, drifting in. There's one there, and there's one just to the left of it. So, you know, they're there, they're still in the area. I don't want to scare them anymore. I'm just going to leave them bags for a couple of hours and hopefully they'll drop down. There you go, there's 2 together there. Nice solid bags. One of them is just in this little hole here, so about that sort of distance out where that fish is, but more this way. And the other one is probably 3/4 of the way across to the island. Can't get a drop on any of them. It's like 2 or 3 foot deep everywhere, and it's just sludge. I
think if this doesn't work, the only way around it would just be to fish choddies and push the bead right to the top of the leader. Early afternoon now, 5:30. We've just had another small one. Again, come to the solid bag. This one was 18.5 pounds. It's been a bit quiet today. It did go really cold last night, and the only thing really that we've had since Matt's last fish is just a barrage of bream that keep coming in and picking up the solid bags. I've also been bitten off by a pike, which was interesting. So I'll get a couple of stills, slip this one back, and then I think we'll settle in for the evening and hope that they end up out in front of us in this little bay like they did last night. Before we came here, Matt was giving me a load of abuse for being the bream catcher. Meanwhile, he's catching 8-pound bream like they're going out of fashion. That's a smaller one, isn't it?
Yeah, much smaller.
Are you thrilled?
Ecstatic. Beach the fuck up. Nailed.
Do you know, some tip anglers would be absolutely overjoyed with that bream. And you're poo-pooing it. Really well nailed in the bottom lip. At least the rig's working, as they say. Oh, she's there. She's righted herself. Back to the depths she goes. Oh. Wave the tail to say goodbye. Bream boy. We are on the move. Beautiful little French quaint villages. Really nice travelling. Very wet and rainy pack up for us today. Got soaked. We're now on our way back to Calais after a lovely trip.